go.
Hello, sci-fi gangsters. This is the show where we talk about science fiction, comic books, video games, but really it's just an excuse for me to catch up with my friends, old and new. I'm Anthony Denar, media scholar and teacher. We have AcidTrain, a bus driver and Twitch live streamer. We have Jeremy Shepard taking time away from listening to his mini Uncle Cracker songs albums, and professional coder. His job is mysterious. We still don't know what he does. And then, of course, we have Will Moon. Will, our first repeat, and in the long run of this show. We've been doing this show for quite a long time.
Yeah, this is episode 100, I believe. Yeah.
This is we have a foundation, but you are our first repeat. Will, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me back, guys. My goal is to be like Chief O'Brien, since forecasting what we're about to talk about, and be the common recurring character who ends up getting his own show later.
Nice.
There you go.
I'm in it for the money.
As you should be.
Yes.
Well, we're talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, and of course, we can't talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation without Will Moon. I mean, that's just not gonna fly. I'm not gonna stand for it.
Well, I was going to, but Anthony did not stand for it for me. So I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. So last time, Will, we had you on the show. We had a great time. What did we talk about? We had a great time. We talked about our time on the radio together. We talked about the highs and the lows of terrestrial radio in a small town in Alabama. And
the mediums, the many mediums. You don't really think about that part as much. It's just the same day, just over and over.
And it's unfortunate that we jumped off the bandwagon before radio really took off. Like before it really became big.
That's right. I sold all my Bitcoin and I got out of radio. And that's right. I was also the GM who traded the pick that would have landed me Patrick Mahomes. So that was a part-time job. I got fired from that job with that team that doesn't take Patrick Mahomes, obviously. But I'm just always getting out before things get good. So
yeah. Well, it looks like you're doing good there. I think you got some Star Trek in the background. Excellent.
I do. The coffee table book that I bought a while back when we made my wife watch the show, and also Deep Space Nine back to back. So yeah.
You also had some X-Files. We need to have an X-Files episode one time.
We do. I am actually that is I'm going to start a whole sidebar here that I don't want to waste time with, but that's a show that definitely deserves a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
Because man, it seems quaint when you watch it now, and you watch the news, and it's 10 times crazier than Fox Mulder ever could have dreamed it could be. But hey, it's interesting to see how that plays into the way the world is now.
Now, X-Files, I have seen how many episodes of X-Files? 0.
So not one at all.
I'm with you on that one. I hadn't seen it either.
Huh.
Yeah. Obviously, it's one of those.
Buff up those geek stats.
Yeah, no.
Is that what it is? I need my geek resume and
Hey, I'm wearing a shirt. That my wife made. So there.
It's very good.
I didn't buy it. It was made by my wife. So there you go. So that helps with my geek credibility there, right?
Indeed.
All right, excellent. A little bit. All right. So by the way, today's topic is, what is the greatest TNG episode? What is it? We all came up with our top 3, and we have some rules. The rules were we had to come up with our own top 3 list. However, they couldn't be off the top of my head. They couldn't be Tapestry, Chain of Command. They couldn't be Best of Both Worlds.
Measure of a Man.
Inner Light.
And
Inner Light, right? We all assume that those are the best 5 episodes in TNG, probably, right? They're in there.
Probably.
We didn't want to repeat each other, so we said, other than those, what are the best TNG episodes? So that's kind of the rules that we're going with. We probably could have said most underrated episodes. We could have gone that direction, but this one just sounds better.
My number 1 is probably also my most underrated for me.
All right, excellent. Well, there you go. That is our topic. But we start the show the way we always start the show. Once again, we've been doing this for a long time. And we start the show by first catching up by just talking about what's going on in our lives. Maybe there's a TV show that we're watching that we like. Maybe we read a book, something like that.
You guys read?
debating.
Oh.
All right. I've been debating what I wanted to bring up, and I have to do it, Jeremy. I'm going to talk about Star Trek Discovery. We talked about it last episode. I'm going to talk about it today. Will, have you seen Star Trek Discovery yet?
I have not been watching the new treks yet. I watched the first episode of Picard and have been waiting on Discovery. Basically, I've just been waiting to get CBS, whatever it's called, and what it won't be called again in like a few months. So I'll try to catch up. But as we will discuss potentially later, all Star Treks take a while to become good. It is a rule of Star Trek, and I know that there's been some gnashing of teeth about maybe these early episodes of those.
Some take less time than others.
Yeah.
well, Deep Space. So let's go through these real quick. Deep Space Nine took a while.
I think the original series got good in the quickest pace.
Okay.
Yeah, it came out pretty much fully formed. I mean, it never really was different from what it was because they didn't build a storyline over time, which TV shows didn't do back then.
But was it the shortest running series out of the Star Treks?
Yeah,
current shows.
Yeah.
Excluded. Yeah, it's the short.
Did it have the most?
The first animated series, I guess.
Amount of movies.
Yeah, I mean,
it had 6.
6 movies. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the 3 with the same characters.
And then some crossovers with Next Generation. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So, Will, I think you're right. I mean, I can think of almost original series, right? All the series, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Next Generation, even Enterprise, they really don't get, in my opinion, they don't really take off until the 3rd season for me. I mean, yes, there's some highlights in there, all of the series. There's a couple highlights in there. Measure of a Man is a good example for TNG, that sort of thing, right? They're in there, but for me, you really don't get into the great episodes until you get to season 3. So let's talk about Star Trek Discovery. All right, so I'm probably halfway through season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, and here we go, Jeremy. Season 3 is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. All right, so we talked about what the weakness is, in my opinion, for Star Trek Discovery. We talked about how it only focuses on a few characters, and it completely neglects all the other ones. It disrupts canon in ways that are very upsetting. It doesn't make sense that they have the slipstream drive, whatever it's called, in the past. It doesn't make sense that they have this technology where they can go anywhere in the universe. It doesn't make sense that they have this. There's a lot of things that really bother. The fact that they bring in Spock and they retcon Spock to have a half sister that he never mentions. All right, so all this stuff I hated, or I should say I really disliked. The things I do like about Discovery is the characters that they do develop are great. I love Saru. I love Burnham. I love what they're doing with all these other characters. They're starting to develop other characters. I think Chris Pike's character was fantastic, although he's obviously not in the 3rd season. But the 3rd season was almost like the writers came up to me and said, "All right, Anthony, what do you not like about Discovery?" And I said, "This boom, 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 boom." And they were like, "Okay, here you go." That's what the 3rd season of Discovery is like. They get rid of all the things that I did not like about Discovery in terms of rewriting some of the canon, dealing with some of these other, like bringing all these characters that already have their own backstories that we don't really need to develop anymore, like Spock, for example. And although I did like Pike a lot. Can we get into it without, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I think you all know what happens in the 3rd season, right? Of Discovery.
I have no idea.
So they have to go into the future. But like it's way distant in the future. So it's like the year like at 3000 or something like that.
Like so Zindi time future?
So like past the temporal wars. Okay. So they go past the temporal wars. They have to go in the future for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into why they have to go into the future. But when they get into the future, Starfleet is essentially non-existent. And the way they set it up, it's pretty awesome because I can see where they're going with it. I can see it seems like what they want to do with Discovery is going to start recreating Starfleet again. That's the direction that I think it's going in. And they're starting to develop some of the minor characters a little bit. I think I like every character in the show. They brought in a new character. They are like 2 new characters that are really cool for season 3. Saru and Michael Burnham's relationship's pretty awesome. I'm on board. I'm on board with Star Trek Discovery. I think it's a phenomenal show, and all the things that I didn't like about it before are now non-existent because they're in the future. So it makes sense that they have. Although you can get into some other issues. If you saw the series, we can kind of get into some weaknesses of the series. But for the most part, I think Star Trek Discovery, and to the point where, Jeremy, I would say start at season 3. Don't even worry about watching the other. Just start at season 3 and just go from there.
I'm sure I would like it if it was set somewhere else in the universe and it didn't interfere with current mythology, or if it was just a different sci-fi show and it just wasn't called Star Trek.
Yeah, I agree with that. In this third season, it really could be another sci-fi show. Like, yeah, Starfleet's around, but Starfleet's very jaded because something happens in the future where every warp ship that has dilithium in it explodes.
Oh yeah, I have seen that.
It completely cripples Starfleet, and all the planets are disconnected from each other.
I mean, that's also presupposing they're still using dilithium that far in the future.
Yeah, I guess so. And why they couldn't come with an alternative source? I don't. Yeah. So that's that. So,
I mean, think about 700 years in the past from now, how people were getting around.
Yeah. There's definitely some issues there, but I like the idea.
So if you accept all the flaws, it's a good show.
Exactly.
Look, that's kind of Star Trek's MO a little bit, right? I mean, it's it's fun as it is. It's never perfect. It gets close, but it's never like a thing that doesn't have some warts. So you have to accept the warts a little bit to really, definitely with the old show. I mean,
a lot of it is just that the quality of media has gotten so high that we're just less accepting of stuff like that as fans.
Well, we talk about, and this was a spiel I was going to have for my first one. I'll split it up. Just briefly, all shows used to be this way, where it would take a while to get where they were going, and that isn't really as much a thing now. We expect Game of Thrones to be Game of Thrones from the pilot. We expect most HBO, Netflix, AMC type shows that are going to run 8 to 13 episode seasons, The Mandalorian now, shows like that just come out and be themselves right away. And there's not a whole lot of patience for them if they're not.
I think that's why I enjoyed The Walking Dead as much as I did, just because it started on a high note and it didn't really, at least for me, it didn't go any lower. It only got, I don't want to say better, but it got interesting. It kept my interest.
I will say Discovery does the Walking Dead thing, and this is something that I do not like about the Walking Dead, and Star Trek Discovery does it. Every show does it now, right? It's all right, we need to kill off a character, so this episode we're going to develop this character and really get to know this character. That way, when we kill them off, it will mean something.
Yeah,
hurts.
you feel
Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem of continuous storytelling. Like, you don't have any standalone episodes where you can get snippets of character development. So it's all mythology the entire series.
Yeah.
I don't really like it. But.
Yeah, it can wear on you a little bit. You don't feel like no stories are breathing. They're kind of all slammed on top of each other. I think as Game of Thrones went, that it had that problem. And that is one thing that there's a lot of flaws to the 20 plus episode seasons that you used to have and you still have on like the DC CW shows. But one of the gains of that is that you do get episodes plenty of time to just give a character an episode, give them a backstory, put them into a weird situation, pair them off with a character they don't normally interact with. All these things that are just kind of the old tricks of the trade to fill, but also to accomplish something narratively that you can't do in a short prestige season that you normally have now.
I feel like it was done also with Natasha Yar with the first season of Next Generation. Only took him a whole season to develop the character, and then it's like, oh, boom, she's not here anymore.
Well, the thing about
what?
I mean, there were other things going on with that.
Yeah, she wanted to leave, and then they gave her that after she had told them she wanted to leave. and she was kind of irritated because that was the first time they gave her anything to do besides hold a phaser, and then they killed her.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, but then she didn't come back, but the actress did. I mean, she was the she still had work after that.
Well, she does come back. I mean, not to spoil one episode that's going to pop up, but
I think we've all seen them all about 8 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can talk about that later.
Oh yeah, so there you go. So those are my closing remarks. Star Trek Discovery 3rd season is phenomenal. I'm on board. I'm enjoying it. There's more heart in Discovery, the 3rd season as well. I get a little emotional with some episodes, particularly the relationship with the crew with each other. I think that's probably one of the best parts of it. Well, okay, so let's go ahead and move on. We'll go ahead and go to Jeremy. Jeremy, what's new?
So I've been watching Cobra Kai.
Oh, really? I almost hit the play button on it. I haven't.
It's worth it. It's not great. It's great.
Is it? Right.
Yeah, it's
check it out though.
Yeah, I mean, so growing up in that the time period when they were coming out, and then I did martial arts for years and years and years. So those movies, had a real nostalgic hold for me. So the show, like they get the nostalgia just right. Like the jokes were on point when they're referencing things that happened in the movies. Okay. I think I'm about halfway through season 2. It's been really good. Like everything with Johnny and Daniel, I really like. Some of the high school-y drama thing I could do without. But overall, it's highly enjoyable, and I definitely recommend it.
It's this weird thing when I watch the show, because I've only seen a season and a half. It's a weird dynamic where you want Johnny to become a good person, like you as an audience. You want him to become you want him to turn good, right? You want that to be his arc, right? But then you also don't want him to be like that, but you want him to stay that way too. Like there's this weird tension when you watch the show. Where
I don't think he's not good. It's just two people with different perspectives on the same event, on the same thing.
Well, no, let's just talk about the first season where when he advocates for the people to cheat, sort of, right? He's sort of saying, hey, win at all costs, and then you can see at the end he's realizing, oh no, this is not the way I should be teaching these kids to act like this, right? He kind of grows throughout the season, where he doesn't care about the rule, he just cares about winning. Now he's like, well, there's actually something more to this, so he is kind of growing in that sense as well.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, this is like not to get too cycle, but it's like a Maslow's hierarchy thing, right? Like it starts, he has nothing, so he's just pure instinct and whatnot. And then as he actually gets a little success and he pay his bills and whatnot, he can sort of afford some of these other luxuries like morality and considering, other people and whatnot. So he does, but I don't think it's that he's bad in the beginning. I think it's just where he was at in life was.
Yeah, it's definitely, I would probably have preferred that it just stayed Billy Zabka's show, where it was really just about Johnny and kind of what is he, because I'm caught up with it. So, what you said, Jeremy, about I like the Zabka and Machio stuff, the high school kid stuff can be a little, I think that's kind of where I am too, and I think it mostly stays that way, not to spoil it too much. The show gets pretty insane plot-wise from where it starts to where it is currently, but it's a Karate Kid, so you kind of, it's fine. I mean, like in Karate Kid 2, they're like going to kill each other. It just seems like it escalated really quickly. So you get a lot of stuff like that in the show. But Zach is one of those where it's like I could totally see him now being in a lot of other things. The same way that like Michael Keaton was in nothing and then got the role in Birdman and should have won an Oscar for it, and then he was suddenly in everything. And people remember this guy was always good. Why did we stop putting him in movies? And I don't know if Zach was going to have that kind of resurgence, but I could totally see him start showing up in like genre stuff.
Yeah,
maybe
like what
side
was
roles in a Marvel movie or something like that. I could totally see that happen.
What's the guy's name who was he played? He was in Wings. He was the mechanic in Wings.
Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah, Thomas Hayden Church. Like what Sideways did for him.
Sideways,
Like all of a sudden he starts.
Oh, yeah.
Then he's Sandman, and he's in all. So one good role, and I mean this is really just the one role that got his career going the first time, but it's just such a different performance and take on that character.
Yeah,
I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I did, and definitely every scene with him is really good just because of the mixture of 80s like just kick-ass braggadocio versus also him growing as a person, and him and Daniel kind of meeting, sort of moving towards each other in a way. Not every plot thing that they do works, and it can be a little silly, but it's also the Karate Kid, so that's sort of a feature, not a bug, essentially, of it. So I definitely, I encourage you, both of you guys, to finish from where you are, and AcidTrain, I encourage you to start, because and you breeze through them, man. I mean, if you have time, they're short. You can just slam through that all the seasons and get ready for the one that's coming, which is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, and I saw that Elizabeth Shue shows up in the 3rd season, so I'm pretty excited for that.
Spoiler alert for anybody.
Spoiler alert. Well, there you go, Jeremy. Jeremy's thinking about his past, where he was doing martial arts with his cut off sleeves. I was a member
of Cobra Kai.
He had his sleeves cut off. Just sweeping the legs of all those little kids. All right, so Acid, let's go ahead and move to you. What's new?
Oh, well, I have big news. I got shot today, guys.
What?
Yeah, right in the shoulder with a COVID-19 vaccine.
There you go. Well, hey, congratulations.
Yeah, so since I'm a bus driver and everything, they finally made it down to the bus drivers. That's lowly little bus drivers. So I got phase 1 vaccine. I was nervous going in. I'm not a huge shot person anyway. I remember a couple years ago, I went down to Nicaragua for a mission trip, and we were feeding some communities down there. But before I went, they had to load me up with, Hep A,
heroin.
B, C, heroin, all kinds of stuff, yeah. And it was like 5 or 6 shots all in one go. So I get those shots, right? And I'm sitting there, and the nurse is like, all right, well, you're done. And I'm like, are you sure you don't want to, like, inject me with a few other things? She goes, no, you're good. So I get up, and I'm kind of feeling a little woozy, So I go into the bathroom, splash my face with water, and, get out. And I sit down for a second, and luckily in the doctor's office. And the next thing I know it, boom, I hit the floor. So the next thing I remember is I'm on the floor, with my hand, like, trying to grab something, but it was the floor. And I turn over, and there's like 5 nurses above my head. And they're like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, I don't know what happened. And like, you passed out. Like, it was not fun. That did not happen today. So
they find out why you passed out?
I just, it's funny. I know why I passed out. It's like, needles don't bother me. Okay. I don't care about needles. Just don't bother me. It's the stuff in the syringe that is entering my body that is not supposed to be there that bothers me. Okay. Like, you can jab me with needles all day if you want to, but don't push the button,
Don't put any medicine in there.
Don't put any medicine in there. Yeah.
Nothing helpful.
Yeah. You can stab me all you want. Yeah. That's fine. Okay. I'll be perfectly okay. But yeah, so it was, very flu shot like as far as feeling goes. It's still kind of, it's still sore. But the worst thing about it is they jam you right in the shoulder. It is right there in the shoulder. And I was like, it's like, is that a little high? She goes, yep, boom, and just shot me right in the shoulder. And, but it's done. It's over. And I go back from my round 2 in 20 days. So February 12th, I think is what they said.
Oh, nice. So you get the Pfizer one?
Yep. And nice. So they injected me with liquid nitrogen. It was great. keep those things
Nice.
all nice. And another funny thing that happened this week is, so I told you last time that we had some distant students that have now returned to the classroom. Well, apparently they all put them in one class, or they all put them all in the same class. Well, I go to pick them all up today, and my little bus aide that loads them all on the bus at the end of the day, she goes, "Oh, well, they're not here, and they're not going to be here for quite some time." And I was like, "What's going on?" She goes, "Well, 2 of them contracted COVID." And I was like, "Oh,
Wow.
great." So they're quarantined and all that kind of stuff for a couple of weeks. So I won't see them for a little while. But I find it ironic that the ones that have been distancing for a half a year already come back for, how long has it been? 2 weeks, and now they are out again.
Their immune system weakened.
Yeah, apparently, yeah, they needed to be around all those new germs. So,
Well,
Yeah, I think they're getting pretty bad here at Auburn in terms of the spread.
So it was like 100 students or something.
Yeah.
but I mean, it's crazy. I've got a couple of 6th graders that are out, and now I have, let's see, 5 or 6 of my little kids. So, I mean, it's crazy. It's so crazy to see that the ones that have been on the whole year, none of them, all of them are completely fine. None of them have been out. And then the new ones that come back are 2 weeks and, oh, sorry, gotta go. And they are the ones that don't speak good English, if we want to get into that aspect of things. So if I had to guess, if I had to put my dollar bill on it or my Bitcoin, I would guess that they're probably not coming back. They're just gonna remote the rest of the year if I had to guess. So
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like Victor is obviously, he's been going to school all year, and we've had a couple of times where Lexi got kind of sick a little bit, but hers came back negative.
Yeah.
Melinda, obviously, she's already got her 2 shots already.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of waiting on Auburn to give it to, because Auburn's doing people who need it the most right now, and then they'll get down to other people. But yeah, it's kind of crazy. I wonder if it has a lot to do with like kids like Victor. He wears his mask all day at school, and when he comes home off the school bus, he's wearing his mask. I'm like, "Hey, Victor, you can take the mask off now." And he said, "Oh yeah." So he's so used to having to wear the mask now that it just becomes part of the
It's just the normal now. I mean, I hate it too because last year I could go up to any other kids and high five them and say, "Hey, what's up? And how's your day? And how's school going?" and that kind of stuff. I could interact with the kiddos.
hand out candy.
I
say,
can't.
"Come with me."
Well, we can't do that. there is no candy.
Okay.
Okay, let's just no candy. All right. But now, I mean, this is what I see. This is their face now. I mean, I see from here up, and I have no idea what they look like. I mean, I kind of talk to them, but you can't get close. I mean, you can't have that connection with your students anymore. So
That's true. Like I have to stop hugging all my students.
yeah,
I never hugged my students. I never hugged my students.
Never react. Didn't react to that at all. Just sort
Never
of
did
bopped
that.
it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten into that habit of because I have the mask, I'll say stuff to myself that I used to just say in my head. So like if I see somebody in a grocery store and they're walking around with their mask hanging down here, and I'm like, "You idiot."
Good.
Well, that's fine. You should do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
You should
to
take your mask off and be like, "Hey, you idiot!"
Every time I see someone without a mask in like a restaurant or like in the grocery store, I always want to say something. I always want to be like, "Put your mask on," but I know they want me to do that. Like they want someone to do that.
Well, they don't want to mess with the guns though. So you gotta. I mean, can a needle get through those for the vaccine? Or
I prefer no mask at all versus the like pull down thing.
Yeah, it's just.
I was listening to the news tonight, and they're like, "Well, doubling your mask is better than having one mask." And I was like, "I'm not wearing 2 masks, dude. I'm sorry."
They told us as teenagers not to do that.
Right.
That's true. That's true. And we all knew what he was talking about. There wasn't even a question about it. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to.
I really want your glass, Jeremy. I just want that huge beer glass.
Yeah,
that's what I need.
The Stein.
put in mind.
It's like a double stein.
All right, Will, what's new?
Well, actually, Jeremy brought up Cobra Kai. We watched that and called up to watch the new season when it premiered, so that's recent. Watching The Queen's Gambit now, which is not sci-fi, but it's geeky. It's gotten me back into chess. I used to be somewhat good at chess, but I don't really have chess brain.
I'll be right back.
You know how some people are just like can just see the board, like the character in the show can just see the board and know how to make moves like 12 moves out. Like I can't do that. I can do okay like in the moment, but so basically an amateur player, I probably do okay. And then if I played anybody who's actually good at chess, they'll kill me. But yeah, it's an interesting game to just read about. It's so old. It's been around for so long. And the show is fictionalized, but obviously draws from an era when chess was more popular than it is now. Just in terms of just its pop culture place, especially with the stuff with the Soviets back during the Cold War. So interesting show if you guys are interested in history of that like 60s time period. And if you like interior design or architecture or anything like that, it's a feast for the eyes in that sense. So and it's also like 7 episodes. So we're about halfway through it. So it's been a plus.
I've been meaning to watch it. I have noticed that I've had several friends challenge me in chess recently, and I think it's just because of the show.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's kind of like how poker just was suddenly everywhere, like about 15 years ago.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing with so much content to fill on TV. If you start seeing chess, like televised chess on some down the line sports channel,
chess is extremely popular on Twitch.
I can see that.
Yeah. People watch chess and like stream chess all the time.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, we're talking like tens of thousands of viewers, like every time they do it.
And this is like the really good players with the masters playing.
And it's this. I know as a gamer, I appreciate graphics. So it's the board and it's the little paper chess figures. And I'm like, guys, can y'all not have a better user interface for this?
Spruce it up. Give me
battle chess.
Yeah, something.
Yeah. Let me choose like a Star Wars themed one so I can see it
like
that way.
3D at least. I mean, come on.
Yeah, like I'll randomly see like Gary Kasparov on shows talking about things that have nothing to do with chess. So I think like the big players in that world are starting to get some, even though he hasn't been a big player in a long time really, but are starting to get some more mainstream, I guess, like they used to be. I mean, because Bobby Fischer was massive when he was competitive.
And I feel like this is right at the era when he emerged in real life and beat the Soviets, because the Soviets just dominated at chess for decades after World War II. And I feel like that the character that Anya Taylor-Joy plays in the show, she was in The Witch, which is a movie I really enjoyed. She's also in Split, which is a surprisingly good M. Night Shyamalan movie. And she's the lead in this. I think she's almost sort of in his place historically to some degree. She's not the same person, obviously. It's not like they just gender flipped Bobby Fischer. So her whole backstory is different. But I feel like what pop culture relevance he had because of what he was able to do and when he was able to do it, I feel like she's going to almost be in a world where he didn't exist and she did. It's kind of the way it's sort of playing out. So, it's very interesting. It's because the way it mirrors some real life events, but it's also its own thing.
The Witch, that's the one where it's like the pre-America, like the witch is like eating the babies.
Yeah, well, in Puritan times, there's like a dude who his character actor you'll see a few times. He was in Game of Thrones. He's in a few other like British things. I mean, Ralph Ineson, and he's so Puritan that even the Puritans are like, get out, which is hardcore. And then she's his daughter, and then the family goes out into like Massachusetts, but like just the woods, and has to survive. And there's a trapdoor narrative in there where there's a way to explain everything without buying into the supernatural elements if you are somebody who's a really hardcore student of history and botany, because the guy who directed that movie he's detailed to a point of almost ridiculousness, but carrying it forward in a supernatural way, it's a very effective horror film for people who have an interest in history. And then the same director made The Lighthouse with Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, which is a great, bizarre movie. Yeah.
I knew they were both from Chris Columbus's production company.
Yeah. A guy named Robert Eggers directed them, and very again, all the way they talk is very period accurate, and what they're about is sort of maddeningly baffling. Both, but both very good movies. If you haven't seen them, I mean, they're not exactly warm fuzzy films, but very well acted and very strong.
I have seen The Witch. We had to watch it as part of I was in one of the grad seminars I was in when we went over horror films.
Okay.
It was
one of my favorite things.
Horror film. So it was like almost there's a lot of feminist theories in there as well. Definitely.
Very much so. That way. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, all right. So go ahead.
No, I was just saying I saw The Lighthouse, but it was just because I like Willem Dafoe, not because of anything else.
Yeah. He's masterful in that movie. And so the one scene where he curses Robert Pattinson's character is one of the best performances you'll ever see an actor give, and it is completely insane bonkers, and it's very much a thing Willem Dafoe can do that nobody else can do. So if you're a Dafoe fan, Lighthouse is for you.
Yep. All right, well there you go. Will's a Dafoe fan, and Jeremy's a Lighthouse fan. So you guys can talk about that film and maybe in another episode. All right, let's go ahead and share our list here for the best TNG Star Trek The Next Generation episodes, and we'll do it the way we always do it. We go 333, 222, 111, going through our lists here. I guess I will go ahead and start us off with cause and effect. So I think someone else is repeating me here with the cause and effect choice. The reason why I like this episode so much, is so enjoyable, because really it's one of those episodes where you really don't need to know anything about the show to enjoy. Like it's one of those standalone, like if you want to introduce someone to Star Trek, for example, and you said, okay, we're going to watch this one episode. They wouldn't need to know the backstories for all the characters. Yeah, they would need to know that Data's an android, that sort of thing. But really, you could sit them down and all right, this is what Star Trek is about. I love the fact that it stands alone by itself, but also it's an interesting. It's interesting in the sense that you know what's going to happen. You know they're going to figure out. You know they're not going to. So the episode obviously begins with the Enterprise exploding, right? Which is kind of like this awesome, like kind of gets you in, right?
Yeah, it's one of the better. I mean, maybe the best opening.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah, definitely, because it takes you right to the very beginning where they're going through the whole. Where it's actually spinning out of control and they're trying to figure out what to do, whatever. All right, and then obviously you're like, okay, they're in this time loop, and they need to get out of it, right? And each time it explodes, it goes back to the beginning. But what I loved about the episode, if you really kind of pay attention to the cinematography and the aesthetics, they change the camera work every time they go back into through the loop, so that there's always a different perspective. There's always different camera angles for each one, which adds this interesting element to it, where you feel like you're living through the loop again, just like everybody else is, but it's slightly different to the point where it keeps you interested for one thing, but it also kind of creates this disturbing feel to it. And there's several scenes where I think the poker scene is a really cool scene where they all just start remembering the cards that are going down, and they kind of they all start saying the cards. But obviously, what makes this episode so appealing is that you know that they're going to figure it out, but you kind of just want to know how they figure it out. Like that's the whole thing. It's like how, like so who was right? Like how are they going to get out of this? And obviously, was it Data that was right, or was it Riker?
Riker was right because of the 3 pips on the collar.
That's right. So
Data figured it out, but Riker was initially correct.
Yeah. So and then there's a Frasier sighting.
Yeah, there was
at the end of that one.
Kelsey Grammer. And they tried to get Kirstie Alley to come back.
Really?
To play Saavik. Yeah.
Oh wow. Wow, that would
been, so she was gonna be his number 2.
Oh wow. Well, there you go. That's my number 3, cause and effect. All right, let's go ahead and move to Jeremy. What's your number 3?
So like there were several that could have been on there. I mean, some of the ones that I know that are on y'all's list, like Yesterday's Enterprise, Q Who, Family. I almost put the Lower Decks on there. But my number 3, I chose All Good Things. So it's got, I mean, it's just fun. Like it's, you've got sort of all the various elements of that they've spent all these seasons building up these relationships with the different people. And, so you get to go forward in time, see kind of where everybody, ends up. You've got the Q and Picard dynamic, that happened several times throughout the series. And really that's the future I would prefer more so than what we see in the actual Picard series. But yeah, it's just a lot of fun, thinking about where everybody ends up, what they end up, where they're going, where they're at in their life at that point. And, sort of see them all come back together and for one last mission kind of thing, one last hurrah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That was obviously one that I was debating putting on the list. I think it's one of the very few season finales where it's not perfect, but you're like you feel satisfied. Like you're okay. This
fun.
is a great way.
They knew that wasn't the last story they were going to tell with those people, so they weren't constrained in like other series are, where they're trying to tie all various loose ends. So they could just sort of have that episode and then, move on to the movies.
Yeah, there wasn't a need to do like a surprising death like an Enterprise, which many people believe is one of the worst season
it's terrible
finales of any Star Trek episode, or just any series in general. I mean, it's pretty bad. but yeah, I agree with you that certainly deserves to be in one of the top 3. Excellent. All right, so Acid, what's your number 3?
Okay, so my these were kind of I don't want to say underrated, but these are kind of like when you mentioned guilty pleasure earlier this week. I went, this is one of those. I went with Data's Day. If you remember that one, that was one of my favorite episodes. Just because you got to see a lot of a good humor, and especially with Data, and you got to see kind of like how he thought about things, and you got to see the dancing doctor, and you got to see, how he reacts in a wedding and dancing and all that kind of stuff. And I just really enjoyed seeing that aspect of Data and how he processed things in his brain, and, how Data spent his day. Like, all right, well, here's what I start off doing. Here's what I do next. And da-da-da-da. And granted, there were big events. And then there was the conspiracy and with the Romulans. And then there was, is she a Vulcan? Is she not a Vulcan? Why is she asking me all these security questions? I mean, the whole episode just goes on and on like that. And that was just something that was really intriguing to me. And that was why it was my number 3.
All right, excellent. So I think that's one of the benefits of having a series where you have 20 episodes per season.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like if you, you just wouldn't care about the characters in the same way if you compressed all that in to, 8 or 10 or 12 or whatever, action-packed, nonstop episodes.
Yeah. And it's a perfect distillation of the very Star Trekian concept of the non-human character who narratively serves to tell us what it is to be human.
Mm-hmm.
That Spock is in the first show, and Data is in the Deep Space Nine. I'm sorry, in the Next Generation, and then in Deep Space Nine you get it with Odo.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, you do.
And then in with 7 of 9, when she shows up, and the Doctor.
Yeah.
On Voyager.
I love the Doctor.
It's a classic Star Trek trope. The most human character often just the non-human.
Yeah.
And that one is that just on a platter. It's like every normal thing and then abnormal thing that Data sees in a day, that you get his perspective on it, the way that he thinks that a human would take it, and then the way that he takes it.
Exactly.
All right, excellent. Another great choice at number 3. Will, what's your number 3?
Number 3 for me is, and I'm really kind of more almost going chronologically here, but you could definitely place them in this order as far as this quality is concerned, is from season 2, Q Who, which Jeremy referenced a minute ago. And this goes back to the spiel we had at the start about shows being kind of bad before they get good. And Star Trek: The Next Generation is famously just god awful for most of the first season. It is, I mean, there's maybe like 4 or 5 episodes that are really good or even above average. And then there's a lot of almost unwatchable Trek in the first season. Season 2 is a little better. I think the lows, except for the terrible season finale, are not as low, but still it's not itself. And I'm fascinated with this old idea of TV shows that are kind of not themselves when they start, from like the 80s, 90s, kind of, you know, shows we watched when we were growing up, and when they hit their stride. And The Measure of a Man, which we, you know, is embargoed here, is the first really kind of great one that feels like what Star Trek is going to be, the Next Generation is going to be. And Q-Who is the opposite, is the sort of other side of that. And they're probably the only 2 really good season 2 episodes. You know, The Measure of a Man is more into the Star Trek ideas of what it means to be a person, you know, ideas about artificial life having actual life or being property. It's very heady, kind of philosophical Star Trek stuff. Q-Who is a little bit more of a science fiction story. You know, we figured Q is going to be recurring because he comes back after the 2-part premiere in season 1. He comes back about 10 episodes later. So we figure he's a classic Gene Roddenberry, what if they met God character. So he's going to keep showing up. He comes back here and he just changes the whole face of the franchise forever. Basically because they're kind of being jackasses to him. You know, like they're a little bit arrogant about dealing with Q at this point, and they don't respect him the way that, you know, somebody with his powers should be respected, even though he is obnoxious. And then literally snaps his fingers and throws them all the way across the universe, basically, and then they meet the Borg. And the off-screen sort of way the Borg are developed through seasons 1 and 2 that kept getting changed because of writer strikes, and then they just kept firing people in the first couple of seasons because most of the writers were bad or hated working for whichever person was in charge at the time. The bug aliens from the interesting but gory season 1 episode Conspiracy were originally going to be the Borg. And that's why they're teased so ominously at the end.
I didn't know that.
And then they never show up. And the reason why is because in the season finale, the Neutral Zone, when the Romulans come back, they're both investigating these horrific like destructions of outpost colonies along the Neutral Zone that they think the other one's doing. And the episode never gets around to explaining why they're out there, and it was going to be the Borg, but they ran out of money. And at this point, they were going to be the bug monsters. So then most people leave the show after season 1 in the writer's room. They go to a new writer's room. Then they have a writer's strike. The money is bad again. So the Borg keep changing. And eventually they come in Q-Who in a part that doesn't really jive with the stuff from the first season. And now they're cybernetic creatures, you know. And, you know, it's not as dramatic. It doesn't have the operatic nature of the Best of Both Worlds. It doesn't get into the ideas of humanity like Borg will do. It's just all around badass as Star Trek First Contact would be, but it is definitely along that and The Measure of a Man are you've watched a lot of bad spandex suit wearing, like Gene Roddenberry didn't develop his storytelling skills at all from the 60s to now type stuff for 2 seasons. Then you get those 2, and you know that then season 3 is just a quantum leap for the show, and that this is kind of the foundation for that.
Yeah, that episode has one of my favorite parts in Star Trek. It's at the very end of the episode where he's talking to Guinan.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, now they know where you're at. And he stands up and he goes, oh, they'll be coming. Like that and that realization. And like, I think there's like some cool like music that plays around that time.
Oh yeah.
Very ominous. Yeah.
Yeah. And like he stands up and he goes to look outside. And you're like, oh crap! Like the Borg, which completely kicked the Enterprise's butt, is coming. You know, so that's
it's this way.
And it's important to remember that there's always stakes to this, and you're going into the unknown. And it's interesting as the unknown is, and Star Trek, the whole thing is you're going into the unknown where no man has gone before and such. It can also be really terrifying, and this is that comes home to roost hard at the end of season 3.
All right, excellent. All great choices. Q-Who definitely could be in my top 3. Everybody mentioned one that could be certainly be in my top 3. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to my number 2. And this one is just one of my personal favorites. I'm not going to sit here and argue that it's actually one of the best episodes, but Parallels. I love this one. This one I
Sure.
frequently watch over and over again, and I love this because it's a fun sci-fi, just kind of standalone episode where you're focusing on Worf, and you kind of it has some cool parts at the end where you see like that one disheveled Enterprise where Riker is captain, where in his universe the Borg has overrun, and yes, there's a lot of cool elements in this episode. Yeah, him going between different multiple dimensions. You have to see him in a red uniform, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I really enjoy Parallels.
Yeah, that episode actually gets referenced in several of the books about the multiverse and Worf, observing the soap bubbles essentially in the cosmic bath.
And Jonathan Frakes is really good in that episode as an actor, which is not, you think about him as more as a director as the show goes on, and it's really more Worf's episode for sure, but he makes a real impression with all the different Rikers that he plays, particularly the crazy one that Anthony just referenced. And the same writer is Cause and Effect, Brandon Braga, who also would be the early showrunner for Voyager, and he would, I think, carry on to the end. And then he also was showrunner for Enterprise for a lot of it, which didn't go as well. He would have problems where he was introduced, especially on Voyager, he would introduce a problem that we couldn't understand because it was sci-fi nonsense, and then solve it with sci-fi nonsense that we couldn't understand. And they kept doing that over and over again in Voyager, so it made it where it didn't really matter what was going on. But when he caught one that was kind of cool like this, or Cause and Effect, he really did a good job of carrying out the science fiction possibilities of it. At a time when, that happens all the time on TV now with various multiverse shows, and in movies we're getting multiverses for Marvel and DC soon. But back then it didn't happen anywhere. So this is the first time you really got to see stuff like this.
All right. How's my volume? My volume still good?
Yeah. Sounds you're sounding sexy there, bud.
Excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to. I'm doing my radio voice out. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to Jeremy. Jeremy, what's your number 2?
So my number 2 is Cause and Effect. I really have nothing to add over what we've already talked about. It's a great opening, gets you right from the start, and it's got Kelsey Grammer on the Bozeman, and that pretty much does it for me.
Well, there you go. We kind of
short, sweet, simple.
Well,
great episodes, right?
It's referenced a lot in other, there's a great Legends of Tomorrow episode where they fall into the same kind of time loop, and they specifically make a point where one of the characters refers to it as Groundhog Day, and then another character corrects that character and says it's more like Cause and Effect from Star Trek, which is a perfect geek joke. But those two episodes came together. The episode in Groundhog Day came around at the same time, independently of each other. Mm-hmm. And any time loop thing, like the movie Palm Springs, which came out last year with Andy Samberg, which is really good. All of them are rooted from kind of those basically two stories. Yeah. So it's right there in the very heart of any sort of time loop thing, which is becoming weirdly common, but is also usually done pretty well.
By the way, this reminds me of there was a VHS game, a Star Trek VHS game, where you there was a Klingon.
It's a VHS game.
Like it's a VHS back in the day, back in the 90s. You put a VHS into your TV, and you played a board game with the VHS while it was playing.
Yeah, so like this.
Yeah, well, I know what a VHS is. So how do you turn a game into that?
You've never played a VHS game?
No.
You never played it? Really? You never played a VHS game? No, it's a board game.
Start over. So you put in the tape, and what?
There's a board to go with it.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you don't just pop it in and be like, all right, well, it's trivia time, guys.
Right. So you pop it in and you have a board game. And the premise of this board game is that a Klingon gets on. So there's the Enterprise is doing a deep cleaning or whatever, and you're the only crew on board. And a Klingon comes on board. He takes over the ship, and you have to find a way to take the ship back over, right? And he's continually there's a timer on the board and on the screen. and you're all trying to do the thing to get whatever you need to get. And then periodically he would come in the screen and go, it's like, oh, you humans, now you're in a containment field. Like he would, like, that's the game, right? And if you lost the game, you had to keep playing till the very end. And at the very end of the countdown, the Enterprise would blow up, right? But then at the end, it would say the Enterprise was destroyed. Essentially you lost the game. But then it says, but then it goes through a time warp, and now you can play the game again in order to win. So that was my long explanation, tying those two things together. All right,
that's kind of how the Star Trek Borg computer game worked. Like if you died, you just loop.
Oh yeah,
infinitely. Yeah.
Do it again.
Yeah. VHS games. All right, AcidTrain.
Yeah.
Go ahead and share your number 2. Why I open up my Zevia, not a sponsor.
Your what?
But Zevia. It's like root beer, but not. All right, go ahead, Acid.
Okay. Anywho, going off of our not sponsored drink. This one almost made my number 1. It was a close tie with my number 1, only because of the trade-off of what happened in this episode, and that was Matter of Honor. Matter of Honor was the episode where Commander Riker swaps with the first officer of the Klingon ship, and they each do their. Or actually, no, he goes to the Klingon ship. The Kern one's later, but yeah. But he goes and he experiences what it's like to be on a Klingon ship. And, I mean, all from the command to the food to the sleeping quarters to how to communicate with the Klingons. I mean, it was so intriguing. And I think what made this episode for me is Worf basically gave him his cheat sheet before he went over there. He's like, all right, this is what's going to happen, right? And he was ready for it. And just to see all those interactions with those Klingons, like the questioning of command, and then him I've never heard a Klingon laugh before, and just them learning about each other. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I just love about Star Trek, and that's why this episode is really, really cool for me.
And that's how Discovery portrays the Klingons in that series. It does not. They're very different. But yeah, I also enjoy that one. That's the one. That's the what I call the student exchange program.
The exchange program, yeah, pretty much.
I always find it funny because every time I rewatch that episode, I'm like, okay, so Riker's trying to be more like a Klingon. He's just being an asshole. So being a good Klingon is just being an asshole. To everybody.
Just go punch everybody. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
I mean, just throw a guy out of the way if you want to get something in.
Exactly. Yeah,
he's so handsome, that Riker. All right, Will, what's your number 2?
Number 2 for me is Family, which I wrote an article about on the Sci-Fi Gangsters website some years ago. I think that was for the anniversary of the show premiering. It's probably 2017. Which is, wow, it's been that long. Pardon me, I'm old. But Family is in many ways
old, Will.
Yeah, no, there's no avoiding it.
Yeah.
No time loops here.
No.
But the really Family in a lot of ways is Best of Both Worlds Part 3. So it's sort of a cheat. What I was gonna say. It's sort of a cheat to put it on here, but it's the fallout from what is the show's most celebrated episodes, and that is actually pretty important. They first started to play with serialization in the show when they introduced the what would be the very long running Klingon storyline in season 3, which the name of that episode is escaping me right. Sins of the Father. It's the one where the House of Moog is discommendated essentially in the Klingon Empire, and that storyline continues basically all the way through until right to the end of Deep Space Nine. And exactly, we've all been discommendated by Anthony, and that was kind of revolutionary. None of the old show episodes really build on each other. They're all pretty separate. You can basically watch them in any order. There's not necessarily a plot that carries on. There is in the movies, particularly 2, 3, and 4, which are kind of a loose trilogy. But Star Trek mostly was a new planet each week. or they'd go back to Earth maybe, or they'd just be out in space and they'd run into a giant space creature that would try to kill them. It was always just a one-off thing, and red shirts would get zapped, and people would have babies or whatever, but then you never hear about them again. They never really built on each other, and family really deals with fallout in a way that Star Trek just never did. And with Worf, who's dealing with what to him is just an absolutely grave dishonor that he had to take, the discommendation from the Empire, considering he thinks of the Empire as being a lot better than it really is, which is a running plot for his character that runs all the way.
I feel like he wants it to be so great.
He's the model Klingon the way Spock wants to be the model Vulcan, because Spock is half human. He's ashamed of being human deep down. He wants to be a better Vulcan than the other Vulcans. Because Worf was raised on Earth, he wants to be a better Klingon than the Klingons actually are.
Yeah.
And like you guys were talking about, they kind of are just assholes. And he's all into the ideas of honor. So for him, it's grave what's happened, even though he's never really been to Kronos that many times in his life. And of course, Wesley. This is a really good Wesley episode of just a handful that exist. But he addresses that his father is dead in a way that the show just tosses out there as a little biographical detail to explain how him and Dr. Crusher are there and why they know Picard. But he doesn't. You don't think of him as a kid without a father, besides that Riker and Picard act as father figures for him. But here you see, this in the episode called The Bonding, which is early in season 3 and was the first Ronald D. Moore episode, get into the idea of like, this is a kid who's kind of messed up, that his dad's not around. It's tough. It's tough for him. And he's got positive role models around him, but it isn't quite the same. And he kind of faces that head on. And then of course the famous bit is Picard going back to his brother's family winery in France and processing what happened to him in Best of Both Worlds, which a lot of shows would have skipped over. The idea of what his body essentially was forced to do against his will, and the way he would have to wrestle with that. And it comes back up in Deep Space Nine when he found out that Sisko's wife was killed at the Battle of Wolf 359, which is done off screen in the show, but it's just an absolute rout in favor of the Borg, in which several Starfleet officers and civilians of the Federation
you see a handful of it in that pilot episode.
Yeah, that's the first time you see any of it. Actually, you just see the aftermath in Best of Both Worlds Part 2. But Picard keeps grappling with it, and it comes back up in Star Trek First Contact again. And this time, it really gives Patrick Stewart, who is just a great actor, a chance to be the Shakespearean Sir Patrick Stewart that we think of him now as. He's not just talking about some science fiction babble, a fictional planet, a fictional alien race, red alert, or I can do that. But, it's not the usual Star Trek boilerplate. He gets to really dig into this guy. And of course, the sad postscript, of course, is the plot decision they make in Generations, which is brutal if you think about this episode, but also inspires Picard in that movie and the subsequent films in the franchise as well. So family really is a big dramatic touchstone for Star Trek. It really, and a lot of the weight of it you see reflected in Deep Space Nine in particular, when that show begins to serialize heavily after season 3.
All right, excellent. Another great episode. So let's go ahead and get on to our number 1 here. And this one, I actually felt like this was a little bit of cheating, because this actually is what I think one of the best TNG episodes.
Yeah,
and that is Yesterday's Enterprise. I actually think that this is probably, if not the best one, it's certainly up there in terms of the best. And what makes this one so great is I think this is the first episode where you see how TNG can get a little dark, because before this, you don't really get into, and it's a completely different tone, and obviously that's the point, right? They're moving into a different parallel universe where Starfleet is no longer really Starfleet. They're constantly at war with the Klingons. They're all jaded. They're focused primarily on war and that sort of thing. So it's a warship, not an exploration ship. And that transition from the kind of the brighter Enterprise to the darker Enterprise.
Yeah, that lighting change is great.
It is fantastic, and it's really it's a fun episode because it brings back Tasha Yar and actually kind of gives her like a story, like something to do, which is great.
Yeah.
So we talked about that before. And it kind of gave her, it almost was like a retcon in her ending as well. Like it gave, so obviously the way she dies, when she dies originally, was kind of, it's shocking, but it's also kind of pointless. And to kind of give her a second chance at a better send off was great. I like what they did with Guinan, where Guinan was trying to figure out what was going on for whatever reason. Guinan's powers and abilities are so ambiguous all the time. So there's points where
I explained this when we talked about underrated sci-fi characters. Right? Part of her lives in the rift, so it's atemporal. So that's how she knew.
All right. So she knew something was off. And obviously, you as an audience are trying to just, you're hoping that she'll find a way to get things back to normal. But it's pretty cool. It's a great example of a darker Star Trek episode. There's a cool tension at the end of the episode where then the battle with the Klingons, which is great. Although apparently that either those images are frequently reused. Are those images frequently used in other episodes? So. Like the Klingons being destroyed, like the phaser and then the Klingon ship being destroyed. I'm pretty sure it's recycled.
There's one shot where everything blows up and then the head of the ship blows up last, and they just reuse over and over and over and over again. But hey, saves money.
Yeah, but I think this is probably one of the best episodes in Star Trek. And Star Trek, at every Star Trek episode. All right. So let's go ahead and move on to Jeremy. What's your number one?
So my number one, like I said, it would be sort of underrated. Like I'm an original series guy. That's my favorite. So my number one is Relics.
Wow.
So this is the episode where Scotty basically comes forward into the 24th century. They're on a ship and they're about to, they're going to die. So he has the ingenious idea to put himself into the transporter buffer basically, and they're just recycling the entire time. And so he is brought forward. And so it's a combination of him and LaForge, kind of going back and forth. Scotty's an absolute engineering genius, but is a century behind in technology. So, it's him coming to grips with the fact that he is no longer the best at what he does. And he sort of has a little depressive period through the episode. But then in the end sort of figures out that he does still have something to offer. He can become a great engineer again in the new century. So it's really just having Jimmy Doohan come forward, and that actually. So I'm a big fan of all the Shatner Star Trek novels, and so the fact that Scotty came forward in this episode allowed that character in the later books and whatnot, which was a lot of fun because you've got McCoy as a very old man. You've got Spock as an old man, but not as bad because Vulcans age slower. And then you've got Kirk, who sort of came forward in time, and Scotty, who came forward. So it's it set the way for a lot of fun stories for me as a kid, and I still reread the books now. But that's my number one.
All right, well there you go. There's a Relic by Jeremy. His number one. Acid, what's your number one?
All right, so I had a couple of number ones. I'm only gonna highlight one, but the one that I was tossing and turning. My first choice would have been Thine Own Self. When Data loses his memory, I don't call it that. He doesn't know who he is. He went onto the planet to get the radioactive material that wasn't supposed to be there, and he ends up damaging himself and wanders into the village and that kind of stuff. But that almost made the number one. But my number one was Neutral Zone. Neutral Zone was the one where Data is so intrigued about going aboard the randomly floating capsule that's just, happens to be in space. And so him and Worf go check it out. And there's these, 3 frozen people on it. And so they decide to bring them back on board. And so they do and unthaw them. And they figure out, that they're from very, very long ago, where banks still existed and, rock and roll country singers and all that kind of stuff was still going on. And it was just so funny. But at the same time, while all this really amusing stuff is going on with the 3 of them, they are in this race to see what's going on with the Romulans, because now the Romulans have all of a sudden shown up, right? So what do we do? And then one of the guys, I think Offenhouse was his name, he ends up getting to the bridge while Picard is in this heated discussion with the Romulans, and he's like, oh, he's bluffing. He has no idea what happened here, and he didn't know how that got destroyed and all that kind of stuff. And sure enough, he's right, but get him off my bridge. And it was a very cool little episode. It's one of my guilty pleasure episodes. But
all right, excellent. You know what that reminds me of? Was it called The Defector? Is that one? That was a great episode.
The Defector was a really good one too.
Yeah. It's another good one. All right, excellent. Will, what is your number one?
Yeah, AcidTrain. Like all of us, there were so many that we could have picked.
Yeah.
The Defector is a classic. It features one of the best of the actors that they keep reusing in different alien roles. But that's the first one he's in, and he's really good in that. The Wounded, when the Kardashians are introduced, is great, and features the guy that plays Picard playing a different Kardashian. Tin Man, I like a lot.
Really?
I like Tin Man because of there's a lot of them that are good because of a guest actor.
Tam Elbrun, I love that guy.
Yeah, Harry Groner, who plays the mayor in Buffy the Vampire Slayer in season 3, is a wonderful villain there. He's a really great stage actor. He makes Tin Man work for me. The Most Toys with Saul Rubinek, who was a last-minute replacement in that role, and is just perfect in it, is another one. I'm really very close to that one. I thought that this one I'm going to do, kind of like Yesterday's Enterprise, is one that we could have embargoed. I thought that we all would pick it, and I think maybe we all didn't pick it because we thought everybody else would pick it. But we'll skip past the ones I was yada-yadaing over there and go with Dharmic, which is one of those towering Star Trek episodes with another actor who they reuse a couple times in Paul Winfield, who plays the alien that's trapped on the planet with Picard. And Winfield had appeared in Star Trek 2 as Captain Tyrrell and was a pretty regular character actor in a lot of movies through the years, in the first Terminator movies and a lot of things. And really one of his best roles is in this movie, or in this episode of Star Trek, because you don't think about the idea of language. Star Trek, it cheats badly with the way that it treats its universal translator. Like, why do Klingons look like they're speaking English? Why do the words not match up with the Klingon guttural noises that they would actually be making, that the computer would spit out as English? And this is true for all of the aliens. It's also true for characters who maybe would speak a different Earth language, like Keiko O'Brien maybe would be speaking Japanese. They never got around to explaining why Picard is British and has a British accent when he's actually French. All these things because it would bog you down, and you just need to get past that, and they have to be able to understand each other. And here's a little yada yada device, and it doesn't. Dharmic takes that out of the equation and makes the whole thing be about communication. Mm-hmm. Echoes of a well-meaning but kind of misguided episode from season 2. The one where the negotiator who's deaf and has the chorus, who were then disintegrated by a stray phaser burst, and he has to figure out how to communicate with aliens where they can't communicate verbally. That episode I thought was well-meaning, but it was in the point in the show when it was season 2 where it wasn't able to really tell those kind of stories in a non-clunky way. And Dharmic, I think, kind of takes that idea and does it in a much more natural way. And of course, the dialogue is humorous. You know, you can easily make jokes about Shaka when the walls fell and, you know, all that. But there's a really good story here about an aspect of science fiction and exploration that you don't think about. And Star Trek does a good job with kind of what we've talked about, what Jeremy mentioned earlier, the episodes where you have these extra episodes. You can do an episode that's about anthropology, or an episode that's about archaeology, or an episode that's about linguistics, things that are not really that interesting if you're looking for phaser battles, but are absolutely critical to understanding cultures. And, you know, Star Trek, in its idealistic way, you know, you shoot the phasers when you have to, but you're really trying to get to know these other races, and you're trying to understand them and establish relations with them. And, you know, Star Wars is where you go for boom, boom, and bang, bang. You go to Star Trek for stuff like this. And this is a really good example of that exact kind of episode. And again, Patrick Stewart is a ringer on a show like this with his ability to you know, do things dramatically that most other people in the Star Trek world can't do. And then Paul Winfield also a ringer as well. And they really play well off of each other.
All right. Well, there you go. Excellent. Darmok, a great example of an episode that most certainly could have been in my top 3. I figured everybody else was going to choose it, so that's why I didn't choose it. So there you go. Those are the greatest Star Trek episodes, TNG episodes of all time. Tell us what your top 3 is. Like and subscribe. Comment below. But yeah, so obviously Tapestry couldn't be on there. Chain of Command, many others that we said, you know, we're not gonna include these. So that was our list. There you go. Excellent. So now it's time to move on to my least favorite part of the show, and that is trivia. It's time to move on to trivia. Acid, do you have those ready for us?
I have them ready with Star Trek: The Next Generation music in our background. I know you're excited about it.
All right. Well, keep it. I will be right back. Get ready.
He's going to be right back, guys. All right. So
CBS.
Do what? No, this is YouTube, so we're good. I'm just playing another YouTube video in the background, guys, so it's totally not copyright at all. Will, you probably remember how this works. Jeremy usually wins this, unless I deem otherwise.
Will beat me last time. I'm sure
Did Will beat you last time? As a fair match? I usually don't make them fair anymore. Sure. I'm like, Will, because you have headphones on, you get 10,000 points. Beat Jeremy.
Well,
yeah.
Cool.
So, but I will remind you, if I can see here, our categories are sci-fi and technology, comics and video games, science and technology, and then geek life. I've got a couple of cards here. I went through the list cards again. We're not going to do that because there's not any good ones left. We've already done all the good ones. So we may need to refresh our quiz questions here pretty soon. Yeah. Because I've gone through all of them, and I'm at the bottom of the barrel. I mean, they're either extremely easy or extremely stupid. So, I mean, this is about as good as they're going to get right now. But Will, as our guest yet again, I'm going to let you choose our first category.
Well, it's kind of just the categories for us. I'll do the comics.
We can do the comics. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Oh, hang on. That's a little loud. All right, we'll turn it down a little bit. Okay, so comics and video games is the category. In Pac-Man, the cherry is the first bonus fruit to appear. What fruit comes out second? What's the second fruit that comes out in Pac-Man?
I should know this.
I'll give you a hint. It's a fruit, guys. Fruit. Okay? That's your only hint. Okay? So in Pac-Man, the cherry is the first one to come out. It's a good bonus. It's like 10 points or something, I'm sure. I don't know. What's the second fruit that comes out? All right, Will, we're going to start with our resident returning guest. What do you got?
I really couldn't remember. I mean, there's a handful that I thought. I'm going to go with strawberry.
Okay. Jeremy, what is your second fruit?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Banana.
Banana. All right. Anthony.
I think the actual answer is strawberry, but that's not what I put down. So I'll say what I put down was just orange. I think it is strawberry, though.
Okay.
But orange.
The correct answer is strawberry.
Yeah. Right when he said strawberry, I was
Will
like, yeah.
takes the lead.
I guess based on the fact that they
goodness.
probably would do a red one second, since I did a red one first, because it would be easier back then.
All right. Will wins
yeah.
them all right now. We should just end the game. Will wins. Game over. All right. We will go with... We'll go ahead and knock out the sci-fi and fantasy.
Okay.
What is the name of the dragon in The Hobbit?
Really?
I think we all know this one.
I don't know it. It's because I don't do Lord of the Rings. I have to look at the back of the card for the answer, which is why I'm giving y'all. This is why I'm asking the questions. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know any of this crap. All right, y'all know all of these things. See, I'm telling you, I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel, Jeremy. Okay, this is all I could come up with.
Well, we could have a pronunciation war.
We could.
This answer.
We could have a
All right.
spelling bee. I mean, we could do that. Yeah.
Although I genuinely don't know anyone could definitively say how Tolkien intended things to be pronounced.
It's just a battle of like there's two different versions that you hear a lot, and I think people who really care way too much about Tolkien Middle Earth would probably argue hard.
The fact that you can have a career purely as a Tolkien scholar is impressive to me. That one man
Yeah.
has
All right.
that effect.
Anthony, what's the name? What's the name of that dragon?
Smaug.
Smaug. Will.
Yeah, smile.
Sure.
Small.
Jeremy, do you have the same answer?
Small again.
All right. It's actually Jeffrey. No, I'm just kidding. It is Smaug.
I don't know if you guys watch how much football, how sportsy everybody here is, but I loved years ago when SEC games on CBS and Vern Lundquist was still calling. This is older commentator for people who aren't familiar.
The good old
fun,
golf commentator.
Good old Uncle Vern. And they were promoting this movie, the second of the Hobbit movies, the one where they really get to the dragon part heavily. And he kept having to read the Hobbit, the Devolution of Smaug. Like, and he would. It's just, if you would think of his voice and the context in which it would be coming out, like in the middle of the Iron Bowl, he's for Smaug.
I can imagine.
Solid for me. So,
Smaug.
Okay. We'll go to Geek Life. We're all geeks here, right? That's what we define ourselves as.
No.
All right. What does AFAIK mean in texties?
I mean, this should probably be based on your age, right?
AFAIK. Yeah, just if you text that, what does it mean? AFA
means you're lazy because you don't type it out.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. Ain't no one arguing with that one.
It's probably changed to something entirely different now. And we get made fun of for thinking it still means what we think.
It's not. It's not dirty. That's your hint. It's not dirty.
You should know what your children are texting, and like the
yeah. And it's just complete.
I watch a lot of Leon Lush on YouTube just to keep up with that kind of stuff. Yeah. He's a little older than I am, and he's a trendy YouTuber, and he keeps up with all like the TikTok and all the trendy stuff. So I'm usually watching him to see what the crazy crap is that goes on, because he puts some good humor behind it. Okay, Jeremy, what you got?
As far as I know.
Will.
As far as I know.
And Anthony, the doctor.
As far as you, I know.
You're all correct. Good job. Well done. Will still ahead by 1. All right. Last one on this card, science and technology. The Motorola Dyna TAC 8000X, or also nicknamed the Brick, was the first mobile phone used to make a public phone call. In what year was it commercially released?
Commercially released.
So the Brick, we'll just go with the Brick. Everybody knew it as the Brick. Come on, you guys know what the Brick is. It was that first mobile phone used to make a public phone
Is this multiple
call.
choice or not?
It can be. Would you like it to be?
I mean, I've got a guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of in like a range.
Okay, I'll give you the multiple choice. 1982, 1979, 1983. That was a good year because I mean that's when I came into the world, guys.
Ooh.
And 1987. Okay. 82, 79, 83, 87. When was the brick commercially released, guys? Come on, you should know this. Anthony knows. Come on, Anthony, what you got? It's like he's doing math. He's sitting over going, all right, carry the 7. Like,
I'm going to go with 83. That's a complete guess.
okay. All right. You're going with when the AcidTrain was made. All right. Will, what you got?
Yeah, I was going to guess a year that you didn't give as a multiple choice. Cool. I'm going to go with 83 as well. I was going to go with 85, but 83.
And J-Dog, as he likes to be called.
I'm going to go 87.
87, okay. The correct answer is 1983, baby. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes.
Well done.
Nice.
All right. So Will's still ahead.
My main point of reference on that was it was in a Saved by the Bell episode, and so I was trying to.
Was
to
in a Saved by the Bell episode.
Yeah. Was it also in? No, I think Wall Street was where they had the different little portable TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
They had.
All right. Everyone should get a point on this one. Star Wars question. I mean, come on, guys. If you don't get this one, you immediately lose the game. In Star Wars Episode 4, what is described as, quote, a wretched hive of scum and villainy? Do I even need to give the multiple choice? I'll probably no. I'm not.
No.
I'm not even going to. I'm not even going to. There is a multiple choice option. Do I need to even read it again?
I think Anthony should go first.
Okay, Anthony, go first, buddy. Let's see if Anthony loses.
What's the question again?
Okay.
What's the question?
In Star Wars Episode 4, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a New Hope. If you didn't know that.
Oh.
What is described as, quote, a wretched hive of scum and villainy?
Is it the that bar? That bar that the bar place they go to?
Is it that place in the movie where they frequently? Okay,
Right. It's that bar they go to.
Will, let's hear the right answer.
Mos Eisley. The town the bar is in. Mos Eisley.
Should we give it to him?
No, because he's talking about the cantina. Which
Is he? Oh, he is talking about that cantina. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it has a name. I'm sure
I mean,
it
is
has a
named.
name.
It's named the Mos Eisley Cantina,
Oh, is it? Okay.
but,
They didn't-
Obi-Wan was talking about Mos Eisley in general.
Okay, sorry, Anthony. I tried. You know, I think I blame your root beer. It's all the root beer's fault. Okay,
Zevia.
we will go to the next one. Scraping the bottom of the barrel again. Geek Life. Okay, here's an interesting one. In the cartoon The Ren and Stimpy Show, Stimpy is a cat. What the heck is Ren? I have multiple choice here too if you need it. Jeremy doesn't need it. Look at him. He's Googling it right now. Look at him.
Probably do need it. I remember it was something weird. But...
Okay, I'll give you the multiple choice. Rat, cat, dog, or lizard?
None of those are what I thought he actually was.
Rat, cat, dog, or lizard? What is Ren? Ren and Stimpy. This one, gross humor was coming.
I was
into
thinking
play
he
in the
was like
90s.
some weird Australian creature.
like a wallaby or something.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Remember there was a Super Nintendo game,
There was.
Ren and Stimpy, where
was.
like you
Stimpy.
had to.
Yeah.
It was a very disgusting
It
video
is
game.
very disgusting. Yep. Okay, Will, what do you have for us?
I thought he was a Chihuahua. So
Okay.
dog.
So you're going with dog? Okay. Jeremy, what you going with?
I was going with dog, but I didn't think he was a Chihuahua.
Okay. So sticking with dog? All right. Anthony
Dog.
wrote it down. It's a dog. Guess what, guys? It's a dog. It is a dog. He was a Chihuahua, believe it or not. Yep. He one of them ugly, stinky Chihuahuas, you know? Okay.
They were big. They
Remember
were
the
big in pop
Taco Bell
culture.
dog? Very similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Let's go to comics and video games. In the arcade game Joust. You guys remember Joust? I remember Joust. The player played as a knight, battling other knights while riding what?
I know.
You should know.
I think.
I know this one. There's
Does it have
multiple
to be-
choice, but
does
you're
it have
not
to be
getting
this.
it.
Does it have to be
Yeah.
the specific type?
Yes.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm.
If
I
you've
don't
played it,
have
you
any
know
idea.
what it is.
I mean, I know what type of animal it is, but I don't know what like particular
I don't think you need to know the
like subtype.
No, you don't need to know the subtype. No. No. Just
Okay.
the type. You don't need to get super specific with it. I don't need to know what color it was. I don't need to know its Latin origin. All right, there is multiple choice. Jeremy thinks he has it.
I mean, it depends on how.
Who would need the multiple choice?
I would probably need a multiple choice.
I don't
Okay.
have any idea.
Well, I'm gonna let Jeremy guess. I'm not gonna
It's a
say if
bird,
he's right or
right?
wrong, but
We're riding on a bird.
what's your guess? Okay, your guess is a bird. I will need more specific than that.
Was it ostrich?
Okay, that's his guess. The multiple choice answers are as follows. Is it a horse? Is it a skateboard? Is it a dragon? Or is it what Jeremy said? Is it an ostrich?
Oh. Oh.
I'm gonna go with ostrich.
Yeah, say
You got to get
ostrich
like
here.
extra points.
You
for
do
that
get
one.
extra points for that. Jeremy got it without the multiple choice. He gets a couple of points there. Bringing him back tied with Will.
I like how baked they were when they.
Right? I mean, let's ride an ostrich with knights and just go.
The early days of video games were wild.
Yeah.
That was my dad's favorite arcade game. Like he loved it. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but he loved it. I mean, it was
ever,
fun.
ever think about the plot of Mario, the old Mario
Yeah.
games, and be like, "What the hell?"
Like, what are
And
y'all thinking about?
You just accept it as like the way it is because it's been around for so long.
Exactly. All right, last question. There can only be one winner,
And it's gonna be me.
and it's gonna be me. So, we're going to science and technology. Which of these inventions did Tesla dazzle a team of potential investors with at Madison Square Garden in 1898? Okay, I'm going to give you these are the multiple choices here.
What if we don't need the multiple?
Oh gosh. Oh. All right.
What's the question again?
Okay. All right. So, which of these inventions did Tesla dazzle a team of potential investors with at Madison Square Garden in 1898? Good old Tesla. I'm not gonna, not giving any hints right now. It's not an ostrich.
I have a general idea of what it is, but
Yeah, how to phrase it. Maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll go with the general ideas. All right, Anthony, what's your general idea?
it was some sort of like electricity. Like it had some sort of like
Okay.
contraptment that
Okay.
had electricity on it.
All right, Will.
Yeah, like a direct current electric coil
Okay.
would be what my
Jeremy.
say.
It would be alternating current for Tesla.
Ah, shit. What do you all say current?
But yeah, I think he was standing inside a Tesla coil and having the the grounding around him, and everyone was scared that he was going to get electrocuted.
Everyone is incorrect.
Ooh.
Would you like? Okay, I'm going to give you the multiple choice now.
Was it his penis?
He got it. Anthony got it. It was his penis.
Was it David Bowie's teleportation machine?
It was electrified penis. Yeah.
What did he delight
Okay.
a group of investors?
All right, here's the multiple choice.
Shocking.
Was it a voice recorder? Okay, was it a voice recorder? Was it a remote controlled boat? Was it a moving spotlight? Or was it an X-ray machine?
What was the year?
1898 is the year.
Oh, the spotlight and X-ray machine.
Yep.
What was the first
Voice
one?
recorder,
Was it-
remote controlled boat, moving spotlight, or X-ray machine. It was actually the Nintendo DS. No.
I still think it's the penis. Like, I'm going to challenge this.
Guys, it's the brand new Tesla penis. Come check it out. A New
Come to
York
the back
Times
room. I got something
bestseller.
for you guys to see.
All right.
Would voice recording wouldn't be around in 18? And what was it?
You know,
18
that's,
what?
That's up to you to think about. You know, that's
18 what?
1898. Take another second. We have
Yeah, I mean-
we have millions of people watching you struggle right now. So
Yeah. Okay. I got it.
everybody got it. Everybody locked in. We're gonna start with Anthony this time because he looks. I mean, just look at.
I'm gonna go with the voice. I'm gonna go with voice recording.
Okay. Will.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the voice recorder.
Okay, Jeremy.
I think it's the remote control boat.
And Jeremy's got it. It is the boat.
Oh, there you
And
go.
Jeremy
Excellent.
pulls ahead by 1.
I was so sure of my Tesla.
He was. Look at. I mean, he was
Yeah,
sure. He was like, I
yeah.
googled it and
I was like,
everything.
I've seen these
Dang.
pictures so many times. Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for trivia tonight, guys. Jeremy is going to legitimately win this one. I have no way around it. There is no way to have him lose tonight. So he is the reigning champion for this evening. Oh, and Anthony, by the way, I just wanted to remind you that the wheels on the bus do, in fact, go round and
you.
round. Just
Thank
so
you.
we're
I just
clear.
want to make sure that we put
I
that
didn't
in
want,
there.
I did not want to miss that for you, buddy.
Excellent. Just wanted to make sure. I'll tell my son.
You should. Yeah, tell him.
welcome
It's,
in.
it hadn't changed yet. I'll let you know when it does.
All right. Excellent. All right. That is the show. We gave our list of the top TNG episodes of all time. We did our trivia. We caught up with each other. We had some laughs. Right.
We
I
did.
said penis.
He did.
And
a few times. Yeah.
That's true. I said it multiple times. Will, it's been great having you on the show. You want to leave us with anything?
No.
Okay, that's
Nah, I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Excellent. Well, that's the show. All you gangsters, I still don't know how to end this thing. Goodbye, everybody.